Whoa, 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 whoa. All right, what's up, y'all? Noisy, as this park sometimes is. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. In The Image Clothing Company. A clothing company, yes, but really, we address the human body's natural function. We come at it through the skeletal system, the thing that doesn't change. People address the fat content, which changes. People address the muscle mass, which changes. But the body really is about a neutral position in every joint, and it's about its foundation and just keeping it supported on an earth with gravity. So we do a lot of things here. We have three sides to us as a whole. This is the main side where I address the human body's anatomy. I get into it in depth, and we just talk about keyword allowing the body to work. The body is something we didn't design. It was designed in the image of God. Jesus Christ designed our bodies, and we can't ever get them to do anything or train them to do anything contrary to popular belief. Myself in the past as well. Today's the 10th of April 2025. So we address clothing and we keep it centered. We give free modifications. We as a company will have clothing available. When we do, ours will be something that stays centered, fits correct, and that's how we allow the body to work, made out of 100% natural materials. But you don't have to buy our clothing. We just do all that we can to help people with their physical bodies, because it's always the reason that a lot of people don't think, really, but the reason is clothing. The only thing placed onto us physically is the reason we're in physical pain, because if it's unnatural, if there's stretch when our muscles contract, if it's oversized, if it's imbalanced left to right, front to back, pockets, zippers, drawstrings, buttons, shoelaces, tags, all the things, right? They can be altering the body greatly from its only working position, then the body's damaged big time. And it happens to anybody who doesn't do all that they can to be very intentional about what they place onto their body. So another third of our company is In The Image Clothing Company podcast, where I have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things. I don't know if we'll ever have anybody else on the podcast. We might bring some really awesome people on, but it's been me as of now, and we're on episode 95. It's beautiful. Check that out if you'd like to. We have another third of us, which is In The Image Clothing Company Music. I'm a fingerstyle guitarist. I show sizings and setups of guitars to allow the hands to work, because the hands are essentially the shoulders. As I talk about, the feet are essentially the hips. They have to stem from somewhere, and they do the same functions, meaning one determines the other. It's kind of like the chicken and the egg, which came first. Well, right? The body's all one. It will only ever work activated as a whole, and so we allow it to do that here. Now, I'll talk about, as I do within the intros, where clothing has to sit on everybody. If you're a man, if you're a woman, if you're tall, if you're short, skinny, or fat, any part of the earth, any time period, any human being to ever live. The skeletal system only has its connections, and it has to be allowed to be in its neutral positions. So pants need to be entirely above the hips, all the way off the hips, so there's no restriction to the functionality of the pelvis as a whole, slightly higher in the front than the rear. These core muscles, just as every muscle within the body does, contract, meaning get shorter to work, and they should always be working. That's why they're there. There's no such thing as activating your core. It's just as much the rest of your body as any of it. So that's the only way we allow the body to even work, while we place something we call pants onto us. So the tops that we wear, the seams on top of our shoulders need to be evenly behind the little bones at the peak of our shoulders. Those are the other end of these collar bones that come to the front in the center, and that's how we keep our shoulders in their only neutral position, which is behind our head. These muscles up here, called the upper trapezius, connect to the very base of the rear of the skull, along the cervical spine, which is just the neck, and then to the top/rear of the shoulder. So, yes, the edge seams of our shoulders should ideally be just right at the very edges where the shoulder hinges and pivots and rotates and has all its operation. Otherwise, there's a clash there between just a joint of the mechanical machine that is the human body and something we're placing onto it. So this video here is titled The Human Body's Center Line. We'll get into it. I just didn't quite finish discussing what I do within the intros. Our 2 prerequisites under In The Image Clothing Company, there's 2 things we talk about. They're separate from clothing because there's not always tags in the clothing we wear, and there's not always shoelaces in what we place on our feet. But when there is, there's only one way to weave a rope across the top of the human foot and call it a shoelace and not alter our feet. So that's what we call In The Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique, found wherever you can find In The Image Clothing Company, all one word. With that, we tie our shoes evenly over toward the center line, right, of the human being, and then there's no alteration from the feet up from laces. Now, secondly, we remove all tags, because if there's a tag within clothing, it's causing a physical gap, changing the skeletal system's only working position and or not allowing musculature to activate against this slippery synthetic material that is the tag. Even if it's semi-natural or completely natural, it's still scratchy or something against the muscles and they can't do their normal job. So yes, let's get into this, the human body's center line, because I talk about it and I talk about it and I talk about it, but I also talk about often, some people think it's a belief that there's like a center line, and I get it. Yoga classes, which, right, yeah, I get it. They try to get all centered, and it's a whole thing that they're doing rather than just looking at it as it is like we do here. There's a center. As I say when I talk about it often, the sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and then the jaw, which stabilizes the entire body. Those are the things that I mentioned because if you're a man or a woman and any human to ever live, you have those things. I mean, right? We've got situations, amputations, deformities, all the things that could come up, but the foundational human being, it has to have a center line because Earth has gravity. And we got to be pulled straight down. We have to be pulled straight down. Otherwise, the body's just using excess stabilizing muscles just to try to hold itself vertical. We talk about how posture's not a real thing. There's only a neutral to every joint. And so if you try to get posture that you think is good, you're probably going too far in one direction of certain joints only neutrals, and then that'll put other joints out of their only neutrals. And so the body just has the only way that it works. It was designed by somebody who is not us, and it just has to stay centered to even stand up, to even breathe. There's 2 lungs, there's 2 sides to the hips, 2 knees, 2 ankles, 2 feet, 2 hands, 2 wrists, 2 elbows, 2 shoulders, 2 of a lot of things within the body opposing the only center that has to be there. So when you watch me as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, Evan Strong, wear button-up shirts, which I do often because I love them, and we will have button-ups available under In The Image Clothing Company. They stay centered. When I bend and when I hinge and when I move and I rotate, my buttons stay in the center right over my sternum here. I've had 2 full open heart surgeries, which is a big incision this large from the base of my throat to the bottom of my rib cage here in the front. So I've got a little bit of experience with the sternum of the body, and you have to keep your body centered. You will never do anything to benefit any part of your body away from its center without focusing on the center. So tying shoes evenly, okay, lacing them to allow those arches to grip opposing the center. Seams, they just need to be right at the sides of us, and ideally no side seams in the shirts that are against our bodies. We talk about that often. It does a lot to just altering the body's only neutral of the arms hanging down. But button-ups have often and ideally this nice flat stitch that's overlapped, but those all need to be on the equal sides of our bodies, otherwise those will rotate the whole body. Seams coming down from the armpits into the sleeves and then all throughout, down clear to the ankles. So some basic things like that are things that we talk about often here, but there's a lot of things, because it's stuff that people don't understand. What I was saying when I said you'll never address the body's health any farther from its center, if you don't address its center, I talk about how what people call quote unquote posture comes down to things like cartilage in the ears and the nose. The ears are just the gap between the rear of our jaw and the base of our skull, and that's what we call the ear canal, which allows sound waves to come in. We've often got things nowadays that we're placing into our ears that are altering the position of our jaw, and if our body's twisted in other parts of it, then the jaw will be imbalanced because it is trying to stabilize, as it just always naturally does, but then it's not in its only center. And the nose, every single breath you take, even when you're breathing through your mouth, which isn't ideal, really, we should be breathing through our nose almost always, but the nose is playing into it either way. And when we breathe through our nose, like I was saying, two of each thing within the body, a lot of things do have two opposing the center. The nostrils, these holes that allow air to come in through our nose and then to our lungs to breathe. And what'll happen is, if your body's in a twist, let's say just from its foundation, from the shoelacing being, well, yes, the lacing alone being uneven, but then tying shoes unevenly will rotate the entire body to the tip of your head and the tips of your fingers. And now when you breathe, you're going to have your nose not centered, because you're always going to be looking slightly off center, and all of the skin on your face is going to be growing off-centered. There's cartilage in the nose, and you can feel that when you blow your nose or just feel your own nose. And what'll happen is, especially right here between the eyes, if we're looking right, almost always, living in a right-handed world, there's a video under In The Image Clothing Company, the main site here, titled The Right-Handed World, but also just being right-handed, looking down here more often than over here, the skin of the body will just kind of move. And the cartilage here in the nose, it needs to be directly centered so that your eyes themselves can look all the way left and all the way right. Because your nose will affect your eyes, but then your nose will also affect your breathing patterns, which affects your entire rib cage and its expansions left to right, which need to be as even as we can get them in our own situations. So other things that we talk about often, like the stitch in the rear of pants, especially stuff like jeans that has a double stitch right in the center of the rear, our glutes come in and they connect, and they need to be evenly connected to where the base of our spine comes down in, because when the glutes activate, if they're not, like where my thumbs are here, if this was my tailbone right here where my glutes come in and connect, if they're not centered as in even left to right directly off of the spine, then when your glutes activate, what can happen is, let's say it's off-centered, your glutes will activate and twist your whole body. And again, that's going to be stemming from your feet, but if it's stemming from that seam directly between those glutes and you sit on it, meaning you sit down anywhere within pants, and that seam twists your whole pelvis, now your body from its very center, but down here at the tailbone, right, between our glutes, it's imbalanced, and so that travels through the whole spine to the tip of your head, but it travels down your legs in rotations to your feet. So, well, and to the tips of your fingers, right? The body just only will ever work as a whole, and so it has to stay centered. We talk about zippers in pants, and we need to keep zippers centered. The pelvis, right? If we're being intentional about not affecting it in the center of the rear, we need to be intentional about not affecting it throughout all of it, because the pelvis is a whole structure, and it has crests like this on the sides of our hips, and that's where our pants are above, right? So there's no restriction to those crests. That's why we say that. Well, that's just why it is what it is. So yeah, there's a lot going on at the center. Drawstrings, twisting actually it would be this way or this way, what the hips would be doing with the knot, but that's right in the center of our bodies. you know, and we talk about all the things that we do. The point being though, with the body itself, because that's where this video is going to be placed, is under that playlist where our videos are for In the Image Clothing Company. We have to keep it centered, and you're never going to try to address it from out here, or from out here, or from out here, or any part of the body if things like those glutes can't evenly work right at the base of the spine, because they come in and they insert to the very lowest part of our spine, and it just has to be centered. Things like the rear of our neck right here at the very base of our cervical spine and the top of our thoracic spine, right? Cervical, thoracic, lumbar, but the spine, which is actually in the rear of the body, where those tags are often placed in the rear of shirt collars. If the shirt's off-centered at all and there's a tag there, which, right, the tag's gonna damage your body no matter what, but years of patterning that we're getting out of, which is what we do here, and then allow the body to work from that point forward. If that tag, because your shirt doesn't sit centered right on your spine, sits off to the right, is what it's going to be, because of things like the dreaded collar seam under In the Image Clothing Company. You can check that out, our modification for the dreaded collar seam. But also just oversized clothing will just fall to your dominant side, and now that tag won't be on the center of your spine anyway, which isn't good, but it'll be off balanced, which is debatably even worse, because now the muscles here, the upper trapezius and then that mid trapezius, can't activate, and it's an imbalanced can't activate. So we have to have a center. I talk about, well, there's a video titled Keeping Collars Centered under In the Image Clothing Company's main site, where we are right now. And these collarbones that I talk about, the shoulder seams needing to sit behind on this end, when they come here to the center, which is the sternum, where my buttons are laying against right now, those collarbones will be just imbalanced. Shoot, that was like a, this is crazy how huge this is. Because really, the collar needs to be just against our neck pretty well, so ideally it's above those collarbones and not sitting on them, because that just won't allow them to be in their neutral position. And they need to be able to be evenly just working right off the center of the sternum. And then our pectoral muscles, they need to insert to the sternum evenly and be able to activate all the way to the sternum evenly, without things like, right, button-ups that are imbalanced, not allowing this pectoral at the insertion to the center to actually work. And so it's not being allowed to pull the body internal. So there's a lot of things like this throughout any part of the body, and we have to look at the center of the body, as in take like a 2-3 inch distance like this and start at the tip of your head and come down, right? The nose, as we talked about, we need to address the jaw in the ways that we can. Excess cartilage in the ears can be softened up so that there's motion in our jaw and it's not being limited by hitting into stiff cartilage here that's excessively grown. The spine right here, right off to it, where the insertion of those upper trapezius muscles are. The spine along the thoracic and the lumbar, where all the muscles are inserting, because they can build up scar tissue there if they're being rotated, meaning just the whole body, and the muscles can't evenly contract like I was showing with those glutes, then yeah, scar tissue. So we need to kind of just travel down the whole body and address its center line and allow it to be. So I'll wait for the plane to get a little bit farther away before I continue to speak. Lots of planes in this area of the earth, man. There's an airport in this town. So yes, it's on both ends. You do need to address the extremity to be able to have the center be able to be centered, but at the same time, no matter how much you address everything, if you neglect / just don't focus on that center strip, things like the nose especially, where the glutes insert, and the spine, but also the sternum, also the trachea, because when we are breathing, when the collars aren't centered, then you can get built up scar tissue throughout your trachea here. The trachea is a tube of cartilage in the neck, so it has some give to it, but it's pretty stiff so that it's durable. And if we're breathing and it's imbalanced at the trachea here, there are diaphragms in our neck as well as in our abdomen that we breathe with that allow us to expand and contract, to inhale and exhale. And scar tissue can really get built up on the right side here, the right-handed world, right? So, in the Image Clothing Company, this is what we do. So, stick around, clothing available when it comes, right? If you'd like to purchase it, look out for it. Anywhere you can find us, 5 words as a whole, in the Image Clothing Company. So, thank you. As I said, today is the 10th of April, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. And just so it's clear, I guess, there's no question on how to do these things that I'm discussing within this video, really that I have discussed within this up until me saying this right now, because I'm explaining it. We have a lot of videos. I mean, somewhere around 170 videos as of today's date on the main site alone. On the podcast, I give a lot of human body anatomy context, even though it's gospel discussions. There's a few episodes that are almost only talking about the body and its function. So we have so much information just as of today that there's no question on how to do all the things that I was talking about within this. But now there's that context, meaning now there's this video documented saying, hey, look, there is a center line. We talk about it often. Come to this, and I explain it pretty thoroughly. So thank you, and thank you. Shout out to Zero Shoes. I just am. I love them. No affiliation as of today's date or up until, but XERO. They've helped me in what I've done here without ever having any communication with them. I've purchased Zero Shoes, and shoes are huge. Their whole slogan is living life feet first. They understand it, and we address the body as a whole when it comes to clothing, although we don't have shoes. And so it's kind of right. It's kind of yeah, they're great. So thank you, and thank you. I just don't want to cut it premature. There's so much I could talk about, but we do, and we have so many videos. So the focus is just, you can't have an opinion on the body needs to be centered. I'll talk about a few things at the extremities really quick. I know that I kind of like wrapped it up, but I do that often. And then I'll think of something else and say it. If there's sleeve cuffs on your wrists, there's a video under In the Image Clothing Company titled How Sleeve Cuffs Affect Body Mechanics. Then that's going to just pull your body down on that side and out of its only center line, but from the extremity. Same with pant cuffs. There's a video under In the Image Clothing Company titled How Pant Cuffs Affect Body Mechanics. There's also a video under In the Image Clothing Company titled Keeping Short Sleeves Short, because similar thing. So things like that that are at the extremities, and then all the things that we talk about within shoes. I show what needs to be modified in shoes to just not have any restriction happen. The lacing and tying is essential, but then on top of that, the design of shoes sometimes needs a little bit of tweaking, just because if there's restriction to the body, there's restriction to the body, period, and done. It will only ever work how it was designed to if it's entirely how it was designed to, without something placed onto it that we've made. So beneficial to wear clothing, modesty, protection, all the reasons, and it's great, but it needs to be just, I can't be telling you something and have it be valid, but just it has to be as minimal as it can, weight-wise and restriction-wise. Otherwise, we will be in pain, we'll be excessively eating and sweating and getting tired. Our bodies will build up scar tissue, chronic patternings, all the things that we discuss here. So as I say, it's as real as it gets. It's as obvious as it is once you see it. The actual cause is clothing. There's no opinion you could possibly have, any human to ever live, and it applies to every human to ever live, but we just don't know what we don't know, and that's fine. So that's why we have the videos that we do, the company that we do, In the Image Clothing Company, and that's why I get so thorough with things, and sometimes our videos are quite lengthy, all right? Because I make a video today and it'll last for literally ever, because human beings will never change. So, thank you.